Hello, my name is Matthew Lucero, and I'm going to be going over cranes in heavy construction for class CSM 5306 for Dr. Soon J. Lee. Outlines and topics we're going to be covering is introduction to cranes in heavy construction, types of cranes and related equipment, the costs associated with cranes in construction, safety protocols of crane operations, cranes and heavy construction projects in Texas, summary and conclusion, and I'll conclude it with my references. First, introduction to cranes in heavy construction. Short overview of cranes technology and the history of cranes. Cranes began as manual lifting devices and evolved into complex machines with advanced lifting capabilities. The earliest cranes do date back to 1500 BC with basic pulley systems. Modern cranes, they do play a critical role in construction by efficiently moving and lifting extremely heavy objects. A crane operator's safety is a number one rule because any mistake can lead to a fatality. Crane selection and understanding load charts is the most important step to successfully creating a heavy construction lift plan involving cranes, and we'll explore different types of cranes and safety and rigging. Coming up next, we're going to be going over types of cranes and the related equipment. So first off, here on the left, it's a tower crane. You see these on high-rise buildings and sometimes heavy construction projects, but mostly there to build vertically, not horizontally. This is a rough terrain crane. You do see these quite a bit on heavy construction projects because of their versatility. The one down here, it is a fixed cab carry deck crane. So by carry deck, it means you can put a load on the deck of the crane and transport it, usually smaller loads. This one is by far the most versatile crane for heavy construction projects, and it's a lattice boom conventional crawler crane. And it's a crawler crane because you can see it has tracks, and it's a lattice boom, that's why they call it that, and it's a conventional crane because it uses pulley systems. This one is a newer type of crane. It's a hydraulic boom crawler crane, so it's basically a mix between a lattice boom crawler and a rough terrain crane. So it's just a hybrid. So these are very new to the industry, and what makes these more versatile than a lattice boom conventional crawler is because it has a hydraulic boom section, so it could be telescoped in and out and transported easier. And the last crane, so I'm kind of covering it, sorry, but it's an all-terrain crane. So you do see these quite a bit in heavy construction projects. They're less, they can't go on as much rough terrain as rough terrain cranes, but they do have a longer reach, and they are a critical type of crane in heavy construction projects. So I'm going to go over the most common cranes for heavy construction projects. Here on the top right is a rough terrain crane. They're ideal for major infrastructure projects that are on uneven or remote sites. They have four-wheel drive, and they have rugged tires to ensure mobility and stability. Their lifting capacities range between 20 through 100 tons, and they bring mobility to heavy construction job sites because of how fast they can be set up and torn down. And then there's the lattice boom cranes. They are essential for heavy lift projects like bridges or dams. They often have a extremely high capacity, even up to 700 tons. They move on tracks that makes them slower, and they take more time to set up and tear down. But they handle massive loads better and have better load charts. So they complement rough terrain cranes very well. Even though they're slower, they take more time to tear down and set up. They can lift more. And then the rough terrain cranes, they're like the jack of all trades. If there's something that needs to be picked and moved quick, that's the crane you use. Okay, so we're going to be going over a few types of rigging. There's synthetic, chain, wire rope. Those are some of the main types of rigging. They're pictured here on the right, including shackles also. Rigging is just very job dependent. You need the right rigging for the job. Every job is different, requiring skilled personnel, usually riggers or iron workers, and an adequate lift plan to successfully lift objects. Basically, if the rigging fails, the job fails. It's a single breaking point most of the time, so proper inspection of rigging is critical in any lift, but especially in heavy construction projects due to the weight and importance of these projects. Now we'll be going over the cost considerations in crane operation. So some of the factors influencing crane purchase and rental costs. Crane types and capacity. Different types of cranes and lifting capacities significantly affect the purchase and rental costs of cranes. Rental duration and market demand. Longer rental periods and higher market demand increase crane rental expenses. Another big one is transportation and setup fees. Additional costs include transportation of cranes and on-site setup fees. So a lot of lattice boom cranes, they require multiple semis to haul counterweights, boom sections, so that all adds up. So that needs to be taken into effect. If you are a company owning a crane, you need to be aware of fuel costs, because fuel consumption is a major ongoing expense and it impacts the overall operational budget of projects. Operator wages, salary of operators, they constitute a continuous expense, but it's essential for smooth operations. You need to pay your operators well, especially when it comes to cranes. And then maintenance and repairs. Regular maintenance, inspection, and repairs are critical to equipment longevity and safety. Cranes have a lot of fail points, so if something's, just say a boom section, if it's bent or a cable's frayed, any little thing on a crane, neglect and maintenance, it could be detrimental to a company owning a crane. So rental rates vary. Crane rentals vary depending on the type of crane, if you have a qualified operator in your company to run it, and if it's a monthly or a daily rental. According to Biggie Cranes, their most expensive monthly rental for a crane is a 440-ton crawler at $70,000 a month, and their least expensive crane is a 35-ton rough terrain crane, and that is at $5,500 a month. Hourly crane rental rates, they range between $300 to $1,500 per hour, but it could possibly be more depending on transportation methods. And this photo here on the right, there's a major heavy infrastructure project going on where I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They're redoing sections of Interstate 25. Now we'll be going over safety protocols in crane operation. So I'm going to be covering some common hazards and risks. So crane tipping risks, right? That's a serious issue with cranes. So if you're lifting an object too heavy and you're out of your load chart, whether it's a structural failure or tipping failure on a crane's load chart, outrigger failures, so outrigger will sink into the ground, make it tip. Another issue with cranes is just dropping a load, right? If your rigging fails, any part of the crane fails, you could drop a load, seriously injuring people. Electrical contact risk, so you could swing into a power line and injure yourself or others on the ground. And then mechanical failure, so if anything on the crane fails, that could just be a very bad day. So regarding safety and regulations, OSHA compliance is important. Another thing, just industrial safety standards. Adhering to industrial safety standards is a must, along with pre-operational inspections, monthly inspections, and annual inspections. I actually took this photo here on the right. It was a crane that was burnt down on the side of the road, so they missed something on their daily inspection, I'm sure, and made it catch fire. So it's just extremely important to watch what you're doing around this type of equipment. So training, certifications, and best practices of crane operations, right? So operating training, thorough operator training ensures skills and knowledge to operate machinery safely. The NCCCO and the NCCER are the most common types of national certifications, and there's 15 states that require a state license to run a crane. And also most companies require a crane operator to hold a Class A CDL. Then PPE, hard hats, safety shoes, all that's extremely important around cranes. And then there's also telematics in cranes. So there's real-time monitoring and diagnostics inside of cranes right now. So it's a black box inside of cranes. So if the operator does something unsafe, they will find out. And that is me on the right. I was in a tower crane in Crosby, Texas, doing crane certifications at the IUOE International Training Center. We'll be going over cranes and construction projects across Texas. So Texas is known for their highway systems, right? Dallas and Houston bridge building I wanted to cover. Bridge projects in Dallas and Houston rely heavily on cranes for assembling large structural components safely and effectively. One project that's going on now that I found is the I-35 Capital Express Central project in Austin, Texas. This project will heavily involve the use of cranes. The dates of the project range from 2025 through 2033 and will require multiple cranes or multiple phases. If there's a bridge, a crane is likely involved. Texas has the most bridges of any state, and it's not even close. Texas has a total of 56,729 bridges. Ohio comes in second with 26,729 bridges. So a lot of those bridges definitely required cranes to complete those projects. So now we're going to be closing it up with a summary and conclusion. So in conclusion, just the importance of cranes. Cranes are essential equipment in Texas's heavy construction, enabling the lifting and moving of heavy materials with precision. It is important to pick the right crane for the job. Successful projects balance the crane selection with cost management to maximize efficiency. And emphasizing safety. Prioritizing safety ensures secure operations to minimize risks in heavy construction projects involving cranes. So I want you all to test your knowledge. I want you to name the 2 national licenses a crane operator must have. What are the advantages of a conventional lattice boom crane versus a rough terrain crane? And name 3 hazards associated with crane operations. Thank you all for listening to my presentation about cranes and heavy construction.